They were supposed to provide health insurance to retired first responders, and now many of them are on the hook for tens of thousands of dollars. That's on this edition of the Arizona's Family Investigates podcast.
Taking you behind the investigation, this is the Arizona's Family Investigates podcast.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. I'm Amy Cutler, joined by senior investigative producer Cody Lillick. For months, we've been following this company known as the Thin Blue Line Benefits Association.
Yeah, we had received a tip about this company from a couple who was insured through this Thin Blue Line Benefits Association, saying that this company had stopped paying their claims. It was back in June. Thin Blue Line provided what's essentially gap coverage, so police officers or firefighters who retire before they're age 65 would apply for this since they don't qualify for Medicare at that age. So that's where this company would come in. And Mark Byram, a retired Phoenix police officer, explained to us what the appeal was for that program.
And I looked at what they offered and decided to give them a call. And they came up with a good plan at a much more reasonable rate than we were paying before.
The couple signed up 2 years ago, and for a long while, things went well. Then in the summer of 2024, problems started.
We started having problems with getting invoices paid from our doctors. And we'd call, we'd talk to people, and as time progressed, we couldn't get a hold of anybody, we'd get answering services. And they could wait for people to call us back. The calls came back initially, then the calls pretty much quit coming back.
With the invoices mounting, the Byrams stopped going to the doctors. Mark's wife, Sonia, says she was just too concerned the bills wouldn't get paid. In all, they owed $10,000. They wanted to cancel the policy, but then they worried if they did, that the company definitely wouldn't pay.
Now, when we had spoken with them, they had just decided to sign up for a new insurance company. They were working out payment plans with their doctors. They just decided they were done with Thin Blue Line.
And around the same time, the Arizona Police Association and the Police Law Enforcement Association both put out warnings on Facebook saying they had heard from their members about issues with Thin Blue Line. They'd cited actions taken in Ohio, where the state attorney general there had obtained a temporary restraining order against Thin Blue Line.
Yeah, and it was pretty surprising to see PLE and the APA put out these warnings on Facebook, especially because they were sort of warning because the FOP, the Fraternal Order of Police, was still appearing to support or back Thin Blue Line.
Yeah, at that point there was only one action being taken, that in Ohio, but we had really not seen any other states take action, and including here in Arizona.
Yeah, and so during all of this, we had been reaching out to the Arizona Department of Insurance about possible action here. They really downplayed any action, saying they hadn't received many complaints. Then in mid-July, they issued a cease and desist.
And this really came out of nowhere, but in that cease and desist, we learned that Thin Blue Line has nearly 4,700 members here in Arizona and had collected nearly $6 million in premiums. So it was quite a substantial operation here in Arizona. Court documents showed that the company was not licensed and was not registered in this state, and the Department of Insurance had, in fact, received multiple complaints. So, Amy, you had been following this story. What was the reaction to this cease and desist that essentially came out of nowhere?
Yeah, it was pretty surprising because I had reached out to their public information person several times on this story. They really sort of downplayed, that any issue was at hand. It almost seemed like they were a health association and not an insurance company, so they weren't regulated in Arizona. So I was sort of going down this rabbit hole of looking into health associations and how all that would work. And then we find out sort of late in the day, I believe it was on a Thursday, that suddenly the story we had been working on had a whole new twist because there was this cease and desist. And in fact, what they were doing, the state said, was not legal.
Yeah, and they kind of towed the line, to have a pun not intended there, but between insurance organization and health association, basically. And you had been trying to track down this company. We had obtained Secretary of State records, business and corporation records of this company, and tracked them to a small town in Texas along the Gulf Coast. And so what was their response to all of this, getting the action in Ohio and now the cease and desist in Arizona? What was their reaction?
So I was not able to actually track them down. I had emailed the main line. I'd called them repeatedly. I had looked into property records of different homes that the CEO owned. I had reached out to some of the main people in the company, and I just had never heard back. And so it was interesting in talking to some of the former higher-ups in the company, because there had been some changeover. They were saying that the CEO was in hiding because this was part of a larger issue. But still, we wanted to get her side of things, and we were just never able to get Thin Blue Line's perspective.
And so the cease and desist just stopped them from operating going forward, but it didn't address the mounting claims that had been unpaid from these first responders who relied on this company to help them with their benefits, but it didn't really address that.
No, and that was sort of the ongoing frustration for so many of these folks, because they had thousands of dollars in medical bills. I mean, they were, once our initial story aired, we were hearing from several other retired first responders. And, you just felt for them because they were in such a tough position. They had hung on, hoping they would get their claims paid. And now some of them were having issues covering other bills because they were concerned that their bills were going to collections. And so the Department of Insurance was saying, hey, file complaints with us, but they were feeling like, okay, we can file these complaints, but what remedy is there?
So what did this investigation, did it go beyond the Department of Insurance? Was there any other state agency that was going to look into this?
Yeah, so soon after the Department of Insurance announced the cease and desist, we learned that the state attorney general's office, Chris May's office, was investigating this. And so that was a good sign, because it, if they determined that action was warranted, it seemed like there were some remedies that could be taken in terms of getting some of these people their money back. But here we are, months out from this, and I reached out to them just yesterday, and they're saying, we're investigating. We can't comment on an open investigation. But I should mention, more recently, I did hear back. We were able to find out the attorney representing Thin Blue Line. They did send us a statement, and they say that they will pay all of these unpaid claims. They are urging people to contact this new email address. There's a new phone number. And I should mention that I have passed that along to people that have reached out to us. They say that they have called and emailed this line, still are not hearing back about unpaid claims.
And so that attorney, he said that, they still promised to pay these claims, and said that all of this was delayed due to complications relating to claim systems issues. So some kind of infrastructure problem is what they blamed it on, and the transition to a new third-party administrator with receiving claims information. So again, not an immediate resolution to these people's problems. You've spoken to several first responders. What are they saying to not only the action taken by Arizona, but also the Attorney General's office now investigating, and Thin Blue Line's attorney's response, but they're still left with the bills?
Exactly right. So I have been trying to urge them to call their doctors and medical providers and encourage them to let them know what the situation is. Of course, some of these folks are on fixed income, so they don't have the money to just pay these thousands of dollars in bills outright. But it's important to try to work out possible payment plans. And then there might be, depending on the amount that's owed, it could be worth them seeking out an attorney to maybe represent them, because there's certainly this ongoing issue of these unpaid bills.
And I know that there was an effort recently through the governor's office to relieve some medical debt. So you wonder if those kind of programs may be open to these people who have been affected by this, because even though they may still be active bills and haven't escalated to actual medical debt, it might be, something that, even the governor's office might look into, some kind of option for relief for these people, because they're still not getting any immediate answers, because these, as far as the Attorney General's office, their investigation will take time. Whatever actions they do take, if they take someone to court, that's going to take time. And, the resolution goes months, years down the line. And, when these entities are trying to collect these bills, they're not waiting in that time either. So they're just caught in a never-ending cycle, and it doesn't show any signs of stopping.
Now, I would mention the one person I spoke with who did seem to have some of their bills paid, and these were lesser amounts, but they were saying that they called that line, that phone number every day. They were a thorn in their side, and they said that they did ultimately get their bills paid.
So persistence pays off.
Yes. Now, adding to the confusion, the National Fraternal Order of Police had seemed to endorse Thin Blue Line. Their logo was prominently displayed. A condition of enrollment was to be a member of the group. So I asked Larry James, their general counsel, about that. Is there a concern that you were, pushing a plan for your members, and that plan was not delivering? I mean, some of these members have been left with medical bills totaling thousands of dollars.
That is correct. We have tried to work with Thin Blue Line to make sure as much as possible that those claims as of effective date would be honored.
It sounds like you guys made money off this partnership with Thin Blue Line, and your members were hurt by it. So how do you reconcile those things?
Well, like any product or contract that the FOP enters into, or any entity enters into, there are no guarantees.
Before you entered into this partnership, shouldn't you have done a little bit more research to ensure that they had the proper funding and business model in place to ensure that your members got the coverage that they were paying for?
Anytime any business model fails, that argument is going to appeal to some people.
So that was pretty surprising to see the general counsel for the National Fraternal Order of Police seem to shrug off the responsibility. And he explained that they had a licensing and marketing agreement with Thin Blue Line. So not an outright endorsement by the group, the FOP, but for members, that'd be pretty hard to tell the difference. And that agreement ended July 18th, a day after that cease and desist was issued. Yeah, it was pretty interesting to hear his perspective, because he basically said, hey, they paid us to use our logo. What happened, but they didn't, and they said it was unfortunate, but I was expecting to hear some regret, and he didn't go that far. Yeah, so essentially here in Arizona, the members who were signed up for Thin Blue Line, it had to stop doing business by a certain date. That happened. So what's next for these first responders who were Thin Blue Line members? What are their next steps to get coverage? Because they're still not that age to get other plans. So what's next for them? So they've got an open enrollment period that the state opened up specifically for them, which started, I believe, at the beginning of the month, and it goes until October 30th. So the state is urging them to go online, to look through the plans. I'm told some of them are pretty reasonable, maybe a little bit more than Thin Blue Line, but still a pretty reasonable price, and to get signed up for those plans. But when it comes to Thin Blue Line, even though that may not be operating, we're seeing other companies that seem to be affiliated with the same ownership group that are tied to that town in Texas, same owner, same address, but seem to be offering similar services elsewhere. Can you talk a little bit about what you found there?
Yeah, so this was a tip that came in that claimed that the CEO had started this company called Mo2 Health, which we looked into, and we were able to find that they had actually started a few years back. But they're offering similar coverage to retired first responders. And then, a quick Google search found that the coverage for Mo2 Health is being offered in Washington and Oregon. And we've got, again, Fraternal Order of Police in those two states, their logos pretty prominently displayed along with offerings for Mo2 Health. And I called the FOPs there, and they confirmed that Mo2 Health is offering plans to first responders there.
But as far as the first responders here in Arizona, still no easy solution for those people who have, kind of thought they were getting a good deal, but are now left with thousands in medical bills. And, for the 4,700 members with the $6 million in premiums, and who knows how much in claims, it's kind of just wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, there's some hope that the Attorney General's office will be able to get some of this money back. The company has this attorney and is claiming that they're going to pay these unpaid claims. I would say, in speaking to the one member who was able to get their claims paid, persistence seemed to pay off, calling every day. I know that is not the answer people want to hear, because who wants to spend their day trying to call a number and leave messages and send emails every day? But, that seems to be the recourse that at least worked for one person. I know that some of them are looking into possibly hiring an attorney to go after the company. So that's another avenue. But then, you're possibly spending money hiring an attorney, which is more money that you don't have in your pocket. So that doesn't seem ideal either.
So the Attorney General's office still going to be investigating this. We'll continue to follow the developments. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Arizona's Family Investigates podcast. For Amy Cutler, I'm Cody Lillick. Thanks for joining us.
The Arizona's Family Investigates podcast, hosted by Amy Cutler and produced by Cody Lillick, and a production of Arizona's Family 3 TV, CBS 5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.